speaker for the evening. Malgosia Green is the Chief Product Officer at Top Hat. She is an entrepreneur with 12 years of experience in education technology industry. Previously, before joining Top Hat, she was the co-founder and CEO of a company called LearnHub that connected students in India with opportunities and universities around the world. She graduated from the University of Waterloo Systems Design Engineering program and is someone who I know many of you here already know and very excited to learn from. Please join me in welcoming Malgosia.
Okay, so hi everyone.
Hi.
We're gonna get the slides set up. And I'm really excited to be here. This is the first EdTech focused product hunt Toronto, so that's really amazing. I have some hopefully words of wisdom to share with you about the journey that I've had at Top Hat specifically, which I think could be really helpful to a lot of you, because building an EdTech startup is really hard. Okay, perfect, good, we're good to go. So I want to talk a little bit about Top Hat's journey that we're on right now of scaling from 10 million to 100 million revenue. So this is a journey that we're well underway, and I want to give you some lessons of things that we've learned along the way. So Darina already introduced a little bit about my background, but I think I've actually been in EdTech, I counted wrong, it's been 14 years, so it's been most of my career. And my journey started at Desire to Learn, and I actually have a colleague here from my Desire to Learn days, Michelle over there. So a little bit blast from the past. And I was one of the first employees there when the company was just around 30 people. And then I went on to found a startup called Nuvo, which was a Web 2.0 self-service learning management system. So this was a long time ago when Web 2.0 was a really cool thing that was just getting going. And then I moved to San Francisco and worked in a marketing education technology company. And then I wanted to found LearnHub, and now for the last 4 years I've been at Top Hat, which has been an amazing journey. Joined when we had just a few million in revenue and have been scaling incredibly since. So how many of you are familiar with Top Hat? So a fair amount. So I'll give you a little bit background about the company. It was founded in 2009. And we are currently over 200 employees. And I actually had to update the slide this morning because when I made the slide it was 190 and it's already over 200. So we're growing really, really quickly. It's amazing experience to be part of a company like this. We have 19 million in announced funding, so I'm not going to say more. And we have 750 university customers around the world. And this past year, we're closing out at 27 million in revenue. And we've been growing at a pretty impressive pace of about 80% year over year. And those are some of our investors that you can see there. Our A round led by Novia and B round led by Georgian Partners. So what does Top Hat do? So Top Hat is a revolutionary teaching platform for higher education. And our vision really is to be the platform that professors use to interact with their students, both inside and outside the classroom. And fundamentally, the problem we're trying to solve is that student engagement is a real problem. So I'm sure most of you were students at some point, or you're a student right now, and this probably looks like a really familiar scenario to you, sitting in a large lecture hall with hundreds of students, really bored when your phone is in your pocket and it's really enticing to just go check Facebook. So this is the problem that Top Hat identified and went after solving. And our solution with our main flagship product, Top Hat Lecture, is real-time polls for professors to engage their students and break up the lecture, quizzes to check whether or not students are understanding the content, and fun, engaging games inside the classroom, and also discussions. And so this really has improved attendance and comprehension and bringing students back into the lecture. So I wanted to give a little bit of background before on how we got to 10 million, because this is the main reason I joined Top Hat is I was just really impressed with its business model. And it was really, really innovative approach. Why do most EdTech startups fail? Well, this is why my first EdTech startup failed. And it's pretty much you have a great idea, you see a problem, you think it's really amazing, you go ahead and build a beautiful product, and you go and try to sell it or hire a wonderful salesperson and go and try to sell it yourself. And you soon realize that the decision maker, some administrative department at a university or a K-12 district, has a 18-month plus sales cycle. And before you know it, you've wasted all of your money trying to sell to the IT department, and you're done. So this is a real problem for a lot of companies, and I see people making this mistake over and over and over again. And the founder of Top Hat, Mike, he started like this as well, except he didn't take 18 months to figure out that it was a bad idea. He took a few weeks and then had this really great insight that the three customers in EdTech are the administration, which is where most people go to, the professors, and the students. And so the administration is the obvious place you go to, but the people who are successful at this level really are really large enterprise companies with a lot of resources. And so that's a really hard problem to crack. And at the student level, there's companies like Chegg and Course Hero, but this is hard to execute on as well because you need like a really sophisticated marketing channel. And in the middle, there's the professors. And most people don't sell to the professors. The only people selling to the professors are the publishers. But what Top Hat thought of doing is looked at what the publishers were doing, the textbook publishers, and thought, well, we can sell to the professor and just like the publishers, get the students to pay, which is a great model because the person making the decision doesn't actually have to pay for anything. And this ended up working really well and took off. And that's how the company sort of broke through the initial phase of growth. And the really amazing part of this whole model is eventually you do sell to the institution because you've got all these people using your product at a school, and when the school decides to actually do an enterprise adoption, they'll just pick you because everyone's using you already. And so you make money along the way. So this is really, I think, a key innovation, a takeaway, and like I said, the main reason that I joined the company. So now we're on the path where we've blown past that 10 million mark, which is a really big milestone, and we're on our way to the 100 million mark. And we're not there yet, but we're doing some great things to get there. So why 100 million? Well, we have Lecture. We found product market fit. We have a great product. We are growing revenue. But the market that we're in, which is the student response market, is about 800 million, give or take. So that's great, but that's not necessarily big enough to be super exciting or necessarily get to the level where we can IPO. So we looked around and thought, well, we can maybe go after those textbook publishers. That's a $10 billion market. And the best part is, it's a pretty crappy product that these guys produce. So it's a physical paper book. It hasn't changed much. They've tried to convert their product offering into digital, but are doing a pretty bad job. I don't know if you guys have ever tried a digital textbook. It's usually just a flat PDF with some DRM stuff thrown on top. And for the most part, students just rip it off the internet and don't pay for anything anyway. And the price of these textbooks has been going up and up because of competitors like Chegg. And students are buying used textbooks and downloading them illegally. And these companies are completely failing. So there was just an announcement recently by Pearson that they're missing all their targets and the company's doing really poorly. And the really great part is we already have a relationship with the professor by our main product. So this is the product that we decided to build. We thought we have Top Hat Lecture, and then we're going to build interactive text and marketplace. And interactive text is the actual textbook product. And then the thing that we're adding on top of that is a marketplace, which allows professors to share and download content from a sort of almost like an app store. And in addition to that, and I won't get into it because it's somewhat more involved, we're changing the way that the content itself is actually created and edited and consumed by the prof themselves. So it's a very innovative model, with the main goal of completely disrupting the publishing industry. So we want to not just take a slice of it, we want to really just take them down. It's one of our stated objectives that we would like one of these guys to fail in the next few years. Yeah. So the challenge is, and I have this illustration I tried to get, and I don't know if it makes sense, but hopefully it does, is you've got this product, and it's working. You're making lots of money. You've made $10 million a year on it. And you've got all these challenges, all these fires you're fighting. Customers are asking for features, and you're very developer constrained. Like every startup, developers are expensive, they're hard to hire. You only have so many of them. So that's going great, but you want to do this new thing. And how do you take those firefighters and move them across the street and have them, pose in front of the house on fire and not do anything? So this was the real challenge on the product side, is how do we as a company orient ourselves to be able to do that big change? So we came up with this framework which really aligns the objectives at the high level, corporate level, the things that we as an executive team decide we want to do, and segments the roadmap to achieve each of these. So each of the roadmaps and each of the product managers at Top Hat actually own one of these objectives. So I've simplified it a little bit at a high level, but there's a roadmap around the core products, so the money maker. So you want that to keep going. You want to keep growing. You want to keep making money. There's a roadmap for sales, which is, hey, there's always going to be requests from salespeople. You need to keep making new sales, but you don't want that to be constantly disruptive to everything else you're doing. And that, in the past, has been a big problem for us. So we have a roadmap for that. There's infrastructure, which is just regular technical debt stuff. And then there's the shiny new thing. And the really interesting thing we do is, as an executive team, we meet and we agree on the allocation between these different roadmaps. So what you get is you get buy-in from all the different people who have a stake in these outcomes. Like the salesperson knows that they have so much to work with, they're not getting any more, they have to fit their requests and their expectations within that allocation. And so that allowed us to move a number of resources into this new shiny thing bucket, which for us is content. And over time, build out this offering, which at the time was super experimental, no revenue. We had no idea if it was going to work, and a bunch of things we tried did not work at all. So what was the result? Well, first year, around 2 years ago, we had no product, no revenue. We had no idea what we were doing. This year, right now, 5% of our revenue is from content. And next year, it's going to be over 10%. And that's significant because that's 4 times year-over-year growth for that product line, because the company's already growing at such a fast pace and a certain level of revenue. And eventually, within a couple of years, it's going to be the majority of our revenue, and that's going to be the really exciting, massive, disruptive piece that takes the company all the way to IPO. So just to reiterate a couple sort of the key learnings that I had through this entire process was that allocation discussion that I mentioned between all the executives. That's really, really key, because it makes people bought into those decisions, and then you are not really going to be changing your mind on a regular basis. You need an exec sponsor to resist the temptation to cannibalize the resources from that shiny new thing to the latest problem that you're encountering. And in our case, that was for the most part our CEO, Mike. I got to hand it to him. He was really adamant about keeping the course on that one. And then that cross-departmental alignment, so getting the sales, customer success, and marketing buy-in and everything, and constant clear communication about where we're heading. So just to finish off, I hope I've made you super excited about Top Hat, and I hope I've given you some keys about some of the things that made Top Hat successful and be able to scale past those early years and how to innovate into those larger problems. And we're growing a ton this year. So I'm hiring 5 product managers, and I'm hiring several UX, UI designers over the course of the next year. So if this sounded really amazing and exciting, like it does to me, and excites you, get in touch. You can apply on our careers page, or email me, or chat with me afterwards. Thanks so much. Yeah. Any questions? All right.
What would you say is the... how does this work?
I'm supposed to throw that.
I see. What would you say is the what would you say is the ideal profile for a product manager?
Thanks so much for that question.
Do I throw this at? Okay.
So I kind of have like the trifecta for an ideal product manager. So I like someone who has a technical background, who has worked in a startup, and also who has had some product experience. But for someone who has had amazing sort of entrepreneurial experience, that last one is somewhat optional. So cool. Right here? Okay, yeah, there you go.
I can throw it back for you. So you're focusing. Sorry. Hello. Oh, cool. That works. So you're selling to the professors, not the students or the institution, but the students end up paying ultimately.
Yes.
Right.
The
Okay.
students pay, yeah.
If you were to target the students, or hypothetically you're involved in an EdTech startup that is selling to the students directly, how would you go about approaching that? Because their mentality is completely different.
Yeah, at that point, it's a purely consumer product, right? So the level of polish needs to be really, really high. It's mostly a marketing exercise. So Top Hat has a monster sales team. I think it's like 100 people or 80-something people. So it is really, in addition to our marketing team, that's where we really invest, is building out that channel to the prof. For a company selling directly to students, it's a marketing exercise. So you need to figure out a marketing engine that's scalable and efficient. So it's less brute force, as in not just a sales exercise, but you can be a lot more efficient long term and have much lower cost of acquisition if you can piggyback off some, great sales marketing channels.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks so much. I work at Influitive, so we're kind of at a similar stage right now, thinking about 10 million to 100 million. I'm really glad you raised that number, though, when the prior question was there. So 100 salespeople, just speaking to kind of our own organization, thinking about that, that would seem to indicate to me like a pretty high cost of customer acquisition. So just wondering and thinking about the shiny new thing, what is the prioritization of that consideration of the customer acquisition cost and potentially reducing that? And how much is that playing into how you're shaping the new product development?
Sure. So the thing about Top Hat strategies, we're like a vertical sort of SaaS play. So we're layering on another offering into our current sales channel. So the thing we end up seeing is, say, the current average price per student for Top Hat for one semester is $24. With content, if someone purchases a textbook, that could be as high as $100. So, and it's the same sale channel. So your cost of acquisition per dollar goes down significantly at that point. So that's part of the strategy.
Perfect.
I guess behind you.
Hi.
Hi.
Have you guys been measuring the performance of the students using the platform, and how have you been measuring it?
Measuring in what way? Like to what end? Are you talking about learning outcomes or
learning outcomes?
Yes, we have. We've done a bunch of studies with professors in the classroom. So we funded several studies, and then some of them have been independently run. And what we've mostly seen is that I think across the board, student grades have increased several percentage points for classes using Top Hat versus not. And we know that attendance rates go up quite significantly, mostly probably because a lot of professors take attendance using Top Hat. And then in addition to that, comprehension levels are much higher. That's for the core lecture product. For the new product line around content, the results are much more staggering, actually. I've spent time talking to professors a few months ago on one of my trips, and the sort of feedback that we get now is that the level of understanding students are able to demonstrate in midterms and exams is beyond anything the prof has ever seen before. Because before you got this textbook and there was no incentive to read it, now it's completely tied to the gradebook and everything has assessment built into the textbook, and there's tracking in terms of what you're reading. So students actually use the book, and profs are able to see that reflected in things that, students' essays and exams and everything, and those profs are quite amazed at those terms of outcomes they're seeing. We haven't done more official studies for that product yet, but that's something that we'll be doing probably in the next year or so.
Okay.
Maybe one here, and then we'll go over here.
Is it okay if I ask a quick question? I'll throw
Sure.
it over.
Yeah.
No, I was just wondering. I find in the EdTech space, there's not as much of like ROI and accountability to like traditional business sales, and sometimes maybe it's more like an emotional angle. I was just wondering, your marketing strategies. Do you find that in the selling process there's a logical benefit position, or do you find that it's more of emotional marketing, or some mix of the two? I'm just curious about that, or I don't know if my question's clear.
To date, we have not invested up until maybe a month ago, and I see Amrita back there, in any real thought leadership around marketing.
Okay.
The sale has very much been a value sale to the professor. So the number one problem professors try to solve is, I want to engage my students in the class. They're falling asleep. They're not paying attention. I spent hours preparing this lecture and no one cares. So that's the number one. Number two is usually saving time. So we go straight after those sort of objective desires and try to demonstrate how we solve that problem. But going forward, maybe we'll try something a little more of an emotional sale. But for now, we're pretty.
Those are the
Yeah.
arguments.
Yeah. So try to get over.
Sorry, just to.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think I have a long throw after this. Just to piggyback off of that question, what is the incentive for professors, just to get a better understanding of it, what is the incentive for professors to actually improve engagement or, actually pull up their students' engagement? Like, why is that something that's a value to them?
So there's two camps. So there's the one camp of the profs that just care because they actually want their students to do well and learn, and that's probably what I would consider our early adopter phase. The majority of profs really don't care that much from what I've seen. So that for them, a lot of them are evaluated on student surveys and student outcomes, and so using a student engagement technology in class helps them to achieve that end of demonstrating that their students are coming to class. Some states actually have a mandatory attendance requirement where you have to take attendance in class, so that would be one sort of value prop to those people. But for the most part, it's to demonstrate that they're doing a good job teaching.
Oh, okay, cool. Oh, that's too far. I think that's too far. I'm gonna hit the ceiling.
Was it? You got this? Yeah?
Oh, so close.
Hey, I got two really quick questions.
Sure.
First, on the content side, how are you guys going about doing that? Are you building it in-house, or are you working with professors who want to write textbooks? And then the second part is, I assume the lecture product required a lot of engineers to build out features, but now you need to balance that with people who can write content and develop content. How are you handling that talent transition and thinking about how you split your time there?
Okay, I'll answer the first question. Hopefully it'll answer most of your second question. So we are doing both. So we have two streams. One we call individual authoring. So these are profs who typically teach very niche courses that there is no textbook out there, and they just want to write their own textbook. And there's not a really good integrated platform for them to do that, so they end up using Top Hat for that. The second model, these are sort of the larger scale textbooks. To date, what we've been doing is sort of kickstarting the initiative by facilitating the group authoring of these textbooks using some project management in-house. The reason we're doing that is just to sort of seed and learn from the experience. The ultimate product we're building, which I alluded to but didn't really get into because it's somewhat more complicated to explain, is a sort of a Git for publishing. And what that's going to be is we're fully automating the collaborative aspect. We have like a lead author, sort of like the owner of the community around that textbook. So think like chemistry or something like that. There'd be one lead author, and they have collaborators, and they work together to build a textbook. And the way that it works, and this piece actually is already built out, is when you get a textbook in Top Hat, one of the value propositions there is you can edit it and do whatever you want with it. And profs really love that. And once that Git piece is built, you can make suggestions and improvements and suggest it back to the main community. So that textbook evolves and gets better over time. And that's part of the whole, we're going to completely destroy the publishing space play.
Very cool. One clarification question. Is the idea that there'll be like one chemistry 101 textbook that everyone would then kind of augment for their own classes?
I don't know. Maybe not. If the competing ones show up, sure. I don't know. Well, I don't think we'd shut it down or anything like that. It's probably good to have competition.
Very cool.
There you go. Oh, thanks. Hey, two very quick questions. What markets are you in, and do you offer a referral bonus?
We focus on the North American market right now,
Mm-hmm.
mostly because the direct-to-prof model works, whereas in the rest of the world, profs don't make buying decisions like that and make their students pay for stuff. However, now that we're at a certain scale, we are this year expanding internationally. So we're looking to open an international office. And so we have a few customers in the UK now and in a few other countries. But for the most part, that's a new strategy that we're going to be going after. But in referrals, I don't know, Amrita, do we have referrals?
Yeah, if they're a really good candidate, sure.
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
That's good.
She's owner, VP in marketing.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Hi. Yeah.
Hi.
So have you considered like partnering with like major publishers themselves to get the content, or you only doing it in-house? Or
So we did, but the content that they have are these crappy PDFs. So it just, the whole offering kind of, whoa, that's exciting.
Place is shutting down.
Okay, great. The offering is so bad, and then the revenue model just doesn't really work out because their cost is so high. So what we end up passing over to the student is not great. So it just didn't make a lot of sense for us. So we had a few partnerships. We had a partnership with Pearson at one point and Cengage, and it just didn't make a lot of sense for us.
Was it because they are too slow to adopt, or is it just the content is too crap? Or something?
The content was really crap.
Yeah.
There's in terms of bringing like their assessment and everything, it would be quite onerous to pull in all of their content making work in ours. And then their revenue model in terms of what we would get per sale and like trying to sell it through our channel just was too complicated. It didn't make a lot of sense. So we're definitely more the create our own content play than partnership with publishers. That being said, we do have aspirations to partner with some smaller publishers, and especially specific tool providers for education. So we do plan on building out an API for the textbook piece, where people who have specialty assessment pieces for, say, like chemistry, with drawing molecules, or graphing for math, things like that, they can plug in those pieces into our textbook.
Right. Thank you.
We have a Facebook question.
Okay.
What's your stack and how do you handle the scaling?
How do we handle the scaling? Well, there's a 3-person DevOps team. So we're Python based, and then we've been converting for the last year to React. So that's been a bit of a painful process, but well worth it. So if you sign up for Top Hat today as a professor, you can see the professor version looks completely different from the student version if you sign up as a student on the web. That's because the student version is still on our old system, and the prof side has been migrated to React. And then we have iOS and Android apps too. Native apps. Yeah. One more question. Someone who hasn't had a question. You in the back. There you go.
Good luck.
Let's see that.
I just pass it in the middle. So.
Do you want me to?
You sure? You want to try?
Just go for it. Yay.
Good throw. Cool. So as a student who has used Top Hat in a bunch of my classes, actually.
Nice. What school?
I'm really curious to know.
No.
I'm really curious to know. So hear me out. I'm really curious to know what your satisfaction rate is for the students. Like, do you get that data from the profs? Do you get that data directly from the students? And like, how do you sort of like manage and like just sort through and like sift through all of that data that you have that you're getting from all of these classes that your profs are using the Top Hat for?
Sure. So we definitely collect student data. Have you never answered an NPS poll in Top Hat?
Gonna have to say no.
All right. We survey all of our profs and students every 2 months. Every single prof and student gets an NPS poll. Everyone knows NPS? Yes. Okay. Good. So that is one channel. So we definitely ask the students directly, and yes, we get feedback from the profs as well. You'd be surprised though, most profs don't care that much.
I'm aware.
But some do, and the ones that do, we hear quite a bit of feedback in terms of challenges students are having. And so the prof feedback is actually quite complex and very nuanced. The student feedback, for the most part, is pretty simple. It typically falls into 3 buckets. The biggest one by far is, why do I have to pay for this? which I completely understand. That's why eventually a lot of schools do end up paying for it for students at some point. And second one is anything like buggy or problems, and then the last one typically is around connectivity issues in the classroom. So when you have crappy Wi-Fi, you're underground, the thing drops, your answer didn't get through, it's a persistent problem for us, which we're working on, and we're trying our best. It's just not trivial to fix, as you can imagine.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been so much fun.